on internet for all and how to expand the opportunities for the 4 billion people, many of whom are in Africa, to have access to the digital world in which we live, which opens up both economic and personal opportunity. And with a pilot now set to initiate in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and South Sudan as a way to start to bring 25 million people into a digital world, to give them access to mobile communications over the next 3 or 4 years. And in emerging market health systems, where we have pilots, public-private partnership pilots in Kenya and Nigeria, to try to leapfrog the actually failed or really struggling health policies in developed markets, and to really leverage technology, leverage advances to improve health delivery. And then the final thing I note is financial inclusion. If we're going to provide opportunity for the millions of young people coming along, a key element is to help them have access to the formal financial systems. Financial inclusion, it has huge gaps today. It's measured the wrong way. It doesn't include usage and sustainability. And there are huge issues of trust here in South Africa, but across the continent. And we see one of the next big challenges of how to really take financial inclusion to the next level. So to me, getting groups together, multi-stakeholder communities together in the way the WEF does, is a unique way to share learnings, recommit together, and align on an agenda to really make a difference here in the years ahead.
Thank you. Ulrich, ABB, obviously big player in infrastructure, and infrastructure is one of the challenges that comes up again and again when talking about development. What's your perspective on how companies can take a role in helping bring about the sort of transformation that we've been hearing is necessary?
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, ABB is a partner of the WEF since its foundation, and we are very honored to co-chair the WEF here in Africa. We are in this continent, we are since 110 years a partner. We're celebrating this year 110 years of presence of ABB in this part of the world, and we are very proud that a lot of the infrastructure that is out there has somehow the signature of ABB in it, whether it's in the power grids, whether it's in the rail sector, whether it's in industry, and all together. At the moment, there are two revolutions going on in the world. The energy revolution, where renewables are kicking in at mass, and the industrial revolution, through digitalization of industry. And both of them have the unique opportunity in Africa to really create a future which is where Africa finds its own pattern to shape Africa for jobs, for employment, and for prosperity. And if you look at three fundamental facts that need to be managed, the one is Africa is an incredibly rich continent, but the exploitation and the value creation coming out of that natural wealth, of natural resources, is happening too much through export in other places, and the wealth is going outside of Africa. The second piece is we have a significant demand, a very strong demand, which is growing rapidly, but that demand is too much being addressed through imports from outside of Africa. So we have a mismatch there, and Africa is the only emerging market in the world where demand grows faster than manufacturing. So we really have to do something about it. And what is really the opportunity? I think the opportunity is that we re-domicile the value chain and re-domicile and create a bridge between the natural wealth below the earth and the very strong demand by setting up a very strong African value chain that consists out of a couple of building blocks. Number one, we need reliable electrification. And that's not only the standard classic power grid, it's a combination between the classic power grid and new solutions like microgrids, which give access to the 600 million people in Africa that don't have permanent access to electrification. We need to work on infrastructure and make sure the 20 million that are moving every year in cities in Africa get the appropriate infrastructure going, and there's an opportunity to create employment there. Thirdly, Africa should find its own way to drive industrial prosperity. As in the telecom industry, where quantum leap was done ahead of fixed line right into mobile telephony, where we have today in Nigeria and in South Africa together more people on mobile phones than in the United States of the US, we need to think about how can we create a unique digital pattern in industry in Africa to re-domicile and be very competitive. We need fourth, an environment where cross-border trade is becoming easier and cross-border collaboration is becoming easier. Today, in some situations, it's easier to import from China into an Africa country than from the neighboring country around. We need to work on trade, and we need to work on duties. And most important, we need to take the people with us. Africa has an incredibly strong population which is growing fast. In 2035, Africa will have 1.1 billion people in the workforce age. We need to take them with us. We need to create jobs in the 4 areas that I laid out before and create employment, prosperity and wealth, and also a positive momentum to move away from we cannot do, we have to wait for others, to a spirit where we can do and we can really drive this jointly by the smart application of technology and infrastructure activities. So I'm quite excited about the future of Africa. If we team up in the right way, if we write this future together in a cohesive way where we have in mind a localization of the value chain to create jobs, wealth and prosperity, there's a tremendous opportunity ahead of us. And I'm very excited on the discussions that will come in the next couple of days about the topic.
So I know we've all our co-chairs have got sessions to go to very shortly. We've got a brief window for some questions. Can I just get a sense in the room if we have questions for co-chairs? There'll be an opportunity to catch up with each of them individually after this press briefing. So perhaps whilst they gather their thoughts, can I just come back and turn to you, Winnie, and just say there is this tension that you outlined between the speed at which people want change and also the need for business to plan long term and look long term. How does that balance get struck? Because it seems sometimes that these two things, this demand for radical economic transformation, and at the same time this need for stability and some measure of predictability, are at odds with one another.
There is urgency. There is urgency to tackle inequality and poverty in Africa. Because like I said, the young people coming on the market, 12.6 million every year, they need jobs. So there is urgency to look at the economic model and start to plan differently. For business, this means that also business models have to change. We have to encourage more business models that share value with more stakeholders, that don't channel profits only to shareholders, but also share their profits with workers, with consumers, with suppliers, giving them a fair price. So business also has to transform. I think that we have a range of businesses here in Africa. We have some businesses that are values-driven and that share their value better, that pay good wages to their workers, that pay fair price to consumers, that do corporate social responsibility. But we also have a whole range of others that really are very much like the businesses that I see, the global companies that I see more often than not. And these are preoccupied primarily with what am I going to make the bottom line, shareholders, what they are going to get, giving them every 3 months a report on the profitability of the company and where their shares are, totally not looking at other stakeholders in the business. So this change in the business model is also urgent and needs to happen soon for African youth to benefit.
And Sia, if I can just bring you in as a representative of South African business. I mean, you know, if I'm trying to build a business here in Africa, but at the same time I'm playing in a global marketplace where, say, an Asian competitor can come in with a lower cost of capital, outbid me, and maybe even also with some government help package up a more enticing offer, you know, even undercut me in some respects. How do you as an African business deal with that, and what's the solution in a marketplace where you're not just competing nationally and internationally, you're really competing globally against some pretty aggressive players?
Yeah, in fact, it's what we are currently experiencing at the moment, where you might find that we've got products that are quite cheap, that we can bring to market, which assist people in terms of bringing down cost. However, you do have aggressive competitors who will come in and they will have aggressive capital structures and finance blended structures that they bring in. And therefore, part of what we need to do is to become much more innovative in terms of our development funding institutions. How do we bring all of these institutions together so that they can syndicate and assist us in terms of bringing their cost of finance down, so that we can be on an even keel, so that we can level the playing fields, because Africa needs to industrialize, but I think Africa also needs to help itself in terms of looking at African solutions to African problems. And therefore, for us, I think it's quite critical that we look at some of those gaps. But also, importantly, we need to raise the level of entrepreneurship. We need to raise, the level of looking at much more creative ways of deepening, the commitment to the infrastructure gaps that we are talking about, raising commitment in terms of making sure that we can bring in more youth into employment, look at manufacturing, look at competitive advantages of different regions within the continent. Instead of competing, try and collaborate and cooperate, so that we can begin to show the resilience that comes out of the kind of specialization that is required in order for us to create more economies of scale and take advantage of the huge marketplace that Africa is becoming.
Thank you. Just going to check the room one more time before I have to release our co-chairs into their next sessions. If anyone has anything they want to throw in, please put a hand up. Tell me where you're from. If not, I'm going to thank each of our co-chairs and wish them a very successful meeting. And to all of you too, I hope you get something from the next 2 days. I know it'll be very busy, so please pace yourselves through the forthcoming 48 hours. Thanks to everyone, and see you inside the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.